Anyone who has ever been on an airplane understands that you never know who you're going to sit next to. After spending her holiday with me during my 5 months of studying abroad in New Zealand, my mom hopped onto her plane to return to the US and struck up a conversation with the woman sitting next to her. Carol and my mom hit it off so well that Carol invited me to spend a weekend with her and her family in Christchurch, New Zealand. Carol welcomed me into her home and into her life in a way that I had never before experienced. Carol shared with me her story of surviving the 2 devastating earthquakes that hit Christchurch in 2010 and 2011. The first, a 7.1 magnitude, hit at 4:30 on the morning of September 4th. The damage to the city was immense, but the damage to the psyches of the Christchurch people was even worse. Carol described waking up in total darkness, hearing her belongings crashing and breaking around her. Even after it ended, she told me how she couldn't bring herself to step out of her bed for fear of slicing her feet on the broken glass throughout her home. The enormous quake had set off another earthquake that hit 6 months later at 12:50 in the afternoon on February 11th. Carol told me that though it was slightly weaker at 6.3 magnitude, the second earthquake was more damaging to the community that was already trying to rebuild. She told me about her friend who was walking to her downtown office and had been thrown into the middle of the street. When she got back up, she looked at the sidewalk to discover the rubble that had landed in the exact spot where she had been standing. Carol told me about another one of her friends that had spent 4 hours trying to get back home after being trapped downtown, only to find that her house had disappeared after the hill it was on collapsed into the ocean. Carol was one of the lucky ones. She can still live in her home, but more than half is still dangerous and likely to collapse. Throughout my short time that I spent with Carol, I was completely amazed by how open she was about sharing not only her home with me, but her vulnerability and willingness to share her experiences of rebuilding after the disasters. It didn't matter that we'd spent so short a time together, we still connected on a deeper level, each able to share our experiences as human beings together. What I came to realize is that Carol's generosity and openness were part of what it meant to be a New Zealander. Earlier during my trip, I spent time at a Maori marae called Tehana. Welcomed by the members of the Tehana tribe, I was given food and a tour of their tribal traditions and cultural practices. At the end of my time there, the tribe elders told me that I had actually become a member of the tribe. Just by talking, laughing, crying, and sharing with Carol and the other people of New Zealand that I met, I had become a part of their story. And with that realization came the powerful understanding that the people I met in New Zealand are as much a part of my story as I am of theirs. Te aroha, te whakapono, te merage marie, tato tato e.